ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar my dear friend, this is video number 7 on Mundaka Upanishad. This video starts with verse number 8 of chapter 2 of Mundaka 2. The fetters of the heart are broken, all doubts are resolved, and all works cease to bear fruit when he is beheld who is both high and low. Fetters, that is to say, the various desires that cling to the heart prior to the knowledge of Atma. Doubts, the continuous stream of doubt that plagues a man as long as he lives is destroyed with the attainment of self-knowledge. All works, etc. The knowledge of Atma destroys the effect of the karma performed by a man in his previous lives and also of that performed in the present life prior to the attainment of knowledge. The karma which has not yet begun to bear fruit. It also destroys the karma performed by him at the time of or subsequent to the attainment of knowledge. But this does not apply to the karma that has produced his present body and has begun to bear fruit. Such karma is destroyed only when all the fruit has been reaped. The body lasts as long as the momentum given to it by this karma endures. An illumined soul, however, on account of his total detachment from the body and mind, is not affected by any kind of karma. Brahma, described in the foregoing verse, is again explained. Verse number 9. There the stainless and indivisible Brahma shines in the highest golden sheath. It is pure, it is the light of lights, it is that which they know who know the self, the stainless, free from the taint of ignorance and its effects, indivisible, because Brahma is incorporeal, highest, etc. The sheath referred to here is the buddhi or intellect. Brahma lies in the buddhi like a sword encased in a sheath. That is to say, it is most vividly manifest in the buddhi, which is described as golden because it is endowed with reason and knowledge and is therefore superior to the other organs. Brahma manifests itself, no doubt, through the other sheath, for instance, the physical and the mental, but its direct expression is through the buddhi, which is subtler than the body, the prana or the mind, by the intellect alone. When it is devoid of all impurities, Brahma is realized. For an explanation of the sheaths, see page 91. The light of lights, the light of such luminous objects as fire, lightning, and the sun is derived from the light of Brahma, which dwells in all hearts as Atma. They know. The wise perceive Atma as the witness of different states of the mind. It is through knowledge of the inner self and not through study of external objects that one directly knows Brahma. Why Brahma is the light of lights? Stanza number 10. The sun does not shine there, nor the moon and the stars, nor these lightnings, not to speak of this fire. When he shines, everything shines after him. By his light, everything is lighted. The sun, etc. The sun illumines all material objects, but this power is not inherent in the sun itself. It is derived from the self-luminous Brahma, which is the inmost Atma of all things, including the sun. When a torch illumines our path, it is the fire and not the firebrand that destroys the darkness. Likewise, material objects are illumined by the light of Brahma through the sun, the moon, the stars, lightning, and fire. Again, it is the light of Brahma, the inmost Atma, that illumines the states of the mind. Thus, from the observation of outer objects such as the sun and moon, and also of the inner states of the mind, one can infer the light of Brahma. A thing that is non-luminous in itself, like a pot, cannot reveal another object. When the external world disappears and the mind itself ceases to function, as in the deepest contemplation of the mystics, Brahma shines directly without the help of any medium. According to the Upanishadic teachings, as explained by the non-dualists, the entire objective universe is possible only insofar as it is sustained by a knowing subject. It is the consciousness of Atma as a knower which manifests the universe. Even such luminous objects as the sun, the moon, and fire cannot reveal themselves unless they become manifest by the consciousness of the knower. These material objects have no light of their own. Everything shines by the light of Atma, the subject. Brahma alone is real. It alone exists. All that one perceives through ignorance to be endowed with changing names and forms is in reality nothing but the immortal and unchanging Brahma. Verse number 11. That immortal Brahma alone is before, the Brahma is behind, that Brahma is to the right and left. Brahma alone pervades everything above and below. This universe is that supreme Brahma alone. Pervades everything. Brahma is the reality of all things endowed with name and form. Through ignorance, one sees, in place of Brahma, the universe of names and forms outside oneself, and in place of Atma or pure consciousness, the individualized body and mind. This false vision creates the illusion of such pairs of opposites as good and evil, life and death, freedom and bondage, light and darkness. It is the cause of man's grief and suffering. Since the multiplicity of names and forms is the result of ignorance, what he is really seeing outside and inside is pure Brahma and Atma, which are identical. Thus, a man is nothing but pure consciousness, eternally free, illumined, and blessed, and the universe too is of the same nature. Even when under the spell of ignorance, he regards himself as a bound creature living in finite universe and practices spiritual discipline to obtain freedom. When the truth is known, the illusion of duality disappears and the universe known as non-Brahma to the ignorant reveals itself as the effulgent Brahma. Here ends the second chapter of the second Mundaka. Now, third Mundaka, chapter 1. Two birds, united always and known by the same name, closely cling to the same tree. One of them eats the sweet fruit, the other looks on without eating. Two birds. The literal meaning of Suparna, the Sanskrit word in the text, is of good wings. The two words refer to the Jivatma or individual soul and the Paramatma or Supreme Self. The former is pure consciousness conditioned by the body and mind on account of its association with ignorance or avidya. The latter is pure consciousness, the Lord Himself, who is eternally pure, free, and illumined, and is the master or controller of Avidya, united always. The Jeev Atma is the reflection of the Paramatma in the Buddhi. The two are inseparable companions like an object and its reflection. Same name, that is to say, Atma. Tree refers to the body. Like a tree, the body is subject to destruction. It has its root above in Brahma and its branches, such as the prana and the organs, spread downward. It is supported by Maya or ignorance, and on it hang the diverse fruits of the actions of living beings. Shankaracharya. One of them, namely the individual soul or jiva, eats on account of lack of discrimination. The jiva identifies himself with the body and experiences the fruits of action. Sweet fruit. The fruits have various tastes and are characterized by pain and pleasure. The other. The Lord who is the witness, the word refers to pure consciousness, which is endowed with such attributes as omniscience and omnipresence. He is the controller of both the individual soul and the body and is the detached witness of their activities. The Pravidya or higher knowledge by which the truth can be realized has already been explained. This knowledge destroys the fetters of the heart and all doubts. Yoga, the practical discipline for the realization of truth, has been described by the illustration of the bow. The present chapter deals with such other disciplines as continence and truthfulness, without which yoga cannot be practiced. The suffering of the jiva is the result of his feeling of impotence. This impotence is destroyed by his knowledge of unity with the Lord. Verse number 2. Seated on the same tree, the jiva moons, bewildered by his impotence, but when he beholds the other, the Lord worshipped by all, and his glory, he then becomes free from grief. Seated, etc. The grief of the jiva is the result of his identification with the body. Under the heavy weight of ignorance, desire, action, and longing for the fruit of action, the jiva becomes drowned as it were in the ocean of the world. He is convinced beyond doubt that the body is Atma and regards himself as the son or grandson of this or that man. He thinks further that he is lean or stout, endowed with or devoid of good qualities, and a victim of pleasure and pain, and that there exists nothing else but the tangible universe. Thus, he comes under the sway of birth and death in this samsara and believes himself to be united with or parted from friends and kinsmen. Shankaracharya. Bewildered. The perplexity of the jiva is due to the numerous troubles inevitable in the worldly life or the result of ignorance, impotence. In a state of helplessness, the jiva cries, I am completely powerless. I am good for nothing. I have lost my son. My wife is dead. What avails my life any more? The cause of man's suffering and impotence is Maya, under whose influence he first forgets his divine nature and then associates himself with many illusory notions, beholds, etc. The jiva, through attachment to the world, performs good and evil actions and thus assumes the body of a god, man, beast, bird, or inferior creature. Afterwards, as the result of virtuous actions such as the practice of austerities and worship performed by him in many previous births as well as in this life, he develops a longing for freedom and approaches a compassionate spiritual teacher and is shown the path of yoga, and at long last through the practice of spiritual disciplines such as non-violence, truthfulness, continence, renunciation, sense control, and inner calmness, he is able to fix his mind on the Lord, contemplate him, and obtain his vision. The Lord. Though indwelling in the body, the Lord is not conditioned by it. He is unaffected by samsara, hunger and thirst, grief and suffering, old age and death, by all. Yogins, Jnanis, and all other righteous people. By the practice of spiritual discipline, the embodied soul overcomes ignorance and realizes his oneness with the Lord dwelling in all bodies. Thus he gives up his false importance and attains to his divine majesty. The idea of the previous verse is reiterated. Verse number 3. When the seer beholds the self-luminous Creator, the Lord, the Purusha, the progenitor of Brahma, then he, the wise seer, shakes off good and evil, becomes stainless, and reaches the supreme unity, self-luminous, or the word may mean of golden hue, which is also an epithet of Brahma, Purusha, the all-pervading spirit, good and evil. They both bind the embodied soul to the world. All experiences belonging to duality are of an inferior order. The experience of non-duality, characterized by an attitude of sameness to all beings alone, is superior. The knower of Brahma is described. Verse number 4. He indeed is prana. He shines forth variously in all beings. The wise man who knows him does not babble, reveling in the self, delighting in the self, performing actions. He is the foremost among the knowers of Brahma. Prana. Brahma is described as the prana of the pranas, that is to say, the life that animates the vital forces in the body, knows him, etc. Even if one understands only the meaning of the words regarding the oneness of the self and Brahma, one gives up vain talk, babble. A man who sees many things talks a great deal by way of describing them. He wants to excel others in conversation, but he who sees Brahma within and without speaks of Brahma alone. His speech is restrained, reveling, etc. He does not relish any material possessions, delighting, etc. He does not take delight in anything except Atma. Actions such as the practice of knowledge, meditation, and detachment. The word does not refer to any rite or ceremony of worship. The knower of Brahma is not by any means lazy or inert. As aids for the attainment of perfect knowledge, such as the practice of truth and self-control, are prescribed. They all are related to the inner life. Verse number 5. This Atma, resplendent and pure, whom the Sinless sannyasis, behold, residing within the body, is attained by unceasing practice of truthfulness, austerity, right knowledge, and continence. Sinless, free from such mental impurities as anger, passion, greed, and lust. Sannyasis. It is extremely difficult for anyone but a sannyasi or world-renouncing monk to practice the spiritual disciplines necessary for self-realization. Within the body, that is to say, within the heart, truthfulness, a strict correspondence between words, thoughts, and deeds. Austerity. The word here signifies concentration of the mind and control of the senses. Continence. Aspirants desiring self-knowledge must observe the vow of brahmacharya or complete chastity. The discipline mentioned in this verse must be practiced continuously and assiduously and not by fits and starts. Further, they are meant for those seekers alone who are not yet completely established in the knowledge of the self. Afterwards, these virtues are not cultivated anymore. They become natural with knowledge of the self and remain with them as ornaments. The triumph of truthfulness is seen in daily experience and is also known from the evidence of the wise. I conclude this video here. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Namaskar my dear friend. Next video number 8 will start with verse number 6 of chapter 1 of Mundaka 3. Namaskar, my dear friends.